Our next presenter has been an integral part of the executive committee of the Ultimate Fighting Championship for 7 years now. He is currently Chief Business Officer, and in that capacity, he works closely with UFC fighters as well as other key members of the UFC Brain Trust, including our honoree tonight. Please welcome Hunter Campbell, here to present the Special Achievement Award to his UFC colleague and good friend Dana White. Welcome home.
Thank you. What's up, Boston? How are you?
Somebody backstage said, this will be the wildest interview you've had in the tradition. I said, no, we had Bill Lee a few years ago. We'll be okay. Bill, I know you're here tonight. Thanks for paving the way. What was your response? I mean, you've done so much, and you've built this thing, and you've been honored a million times, but this is home. This is Boston.
Listen, when you talk about being honored, obviously the greatest sports town ever, anywhere in the history of the world. This city has given me and my family so much great memories and amazing moments in sports. And to be honored here, everybody says they're honored to be honored, but this is truly very special to me. I really appreciate this award.
Hunter, you were saying he's genuinely fired up about this.
Yeah, I was saying it the other day. He gets offers to do versions of this all the time. This was the first time I've actually seen him proud and pumped up in a way that's not, you know what I mean, truly genuine, where I could see he was happy. It was meaningful. It was incredible. And as I was telling you earlier, you can't sort of talk about Dana without talking about the Boston roots. Everything from the fighting culture to the way that he thinks about production and promoting fights, and even building a star like Conor McGregor. I don't think Dana built Conor McGregor into the star that he is, or the way that it was developed, without sort of understanding the way that he watched fights in Boston. And it's fundamental to the success of our organization.
Talking to Ron Borges backstage before, and just talking about getting to know you before any of this.
Oh yeah, Ron was a big believer in the UFC. Yeah, big believer. Brought him out and sat him with me one night, and he's like, yeah, I don't get it. I don't think this is gonna work. Real visionary, Ron. My man.
How many times have you had that conversation? How many times did somebody sit down and say, I don't see this?
With every sports writer in America, believe me. Every sports writer in America, every sportscaster in America, and many, many other people. Yeah, not a lot of people were big believers. You know, when you think about when we started, and to everybody in this room, I mean, back in the 80s, going into the early 90s, boxing was king, and you had guys like Bob Arum and Don King, and these guys who HBO boxing was around at the time. And you know, when you look at something and you say, I want to be bigger than this, and it looks impossible to do, nothing is impossible. When you believe in something and you work hard enough for it, you know, I was just a regular guy that went to work every day. I worked at the Boston Harbor Hotel. I walked out one day and said, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't me. You know, and Joe Cav, my boy, is in here. He worked at the front door. He's like, what are you doing? You're quitting this job. 401k, you know, medical. We make cash every day. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to get into the fight game. He said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Ron Borges Jr. over there. And then, so I went out and sought out this guy that you shouldn't be looking for in Boston. He was like a fight legend, and he deserves this award as much as I do. Peter Welsh over here from South Boston. I went to him, found him, said, listen, I want to learn everything I can about the fight business. I'll work for free. They lived in Southie. His wife, who's here tonight, thought I was a Fed. And this is crazy. Where'd this dude come from out of nowhere, and he wants to work for free? This makes no sense. So that's how it all started, and here we are today.
UFC comes up for sale. There's an opportunity to get involved. You get some people together, but not exactly a bidding war going on for this thing at the time. I mean, nobody looked at this thing and said, wow, this thing is going to take down boxing and become the biggest thing in the fight game.
Yeah, so me and my buddy started taking jiu-jitsu, and we fell in love with it. We started to meet some of the UFC fighters, and we were blown away by them. You know, they weren't what you thought they were. And once I heard that this thing was in trouble, I got into a conversation, actually a contract battle with the old owner of the UFC, Bob Meyerowitz, out of New York. He flipped out on me one day and said, there is no more money. We might not even be able to put on one more event. And when we hung up the phone, I was like, oh man. I called the brothers, the Fertitta brothers, and I said, the UFC's in trouble. I think we can buy it, and I think we should. And probably 2 months later, we ended up buying the UFC for $2 million. Yeah, it sounds great now, but we lost $44 million before we ended up turning it around.
Yeah,
so.
it didn't make $3 million in year 2.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But you stuck with it, and ultimately the show, right? I mean, for most of us, that was our first experience, right? The Ultimate Fighter, the whole concept of seeing this on TV, and yeah, I guess that's still somewhat in the early days of reality TV. That whole concept of learning a personality and watching this guy get at it, like that really seemed to catch the attention of the national.
This thing had such a bad stigma attached to it that it wasn't. Think about this: as a grown adult, you didn't have the option to buy it on pay-per-view. It wasn't even allowed on pay-per-view. Porn was on pay-per-view, okay? And the UFC was not allowed on pay-per-view. Our goal was to get it on free television. So the reality show thing had just taken off. Reality shows were getting big. So we used that as sort of our Trojan horse to get on television, with fighting without it really being fighting. I guess that's how I would say it. But yeah. We did season. There was a network that had just started called Spike TV, and it was supposed to be the network for men. Perfect for us, right? Not really. We met with the execs from Spike TV, and we pitched them the idea. They hated it. We said, well, how about if we pay for it? $10 million for the first season. They liked that idea. So we put up, and basically it was the last $10 million the Fertittas were going to invest in the UFC, and. What was great about it is because we paid for that season, we owned 100% of the UFC. Normally, if they would have paid us, they would have owned a percentage or whatever, but everything happens for a reason. We put up the $10 million bucks, and we ended up owning 100% of the UFC. We didn't have to give up anything to the network.
Worked out. Hunter, I've seen a million interviews, podcasts with Dana. Is it like this all the time?
Yes.
Is there any off switch?
No. Not only is there, this is the version you see. Trust me, there's another level.
Wait. This is base camp?
This is base. This is your base level. I sent him this quote the other day. I was reading a book, and it was from Andrew, I think it was Andrew Jackson in the 1830s, and he says, I was born for a storm as the calm does not suit me, right? If things are good, he's bothered. There's something he's that type of guy. But here's what I always say to everybody who sort of asks me about Dana, who doesn't know him. From a leadership perspective, Dana is the ultimate sort of lead by example guy. You don't get the rah-rah speeches internally. You don't do that. When COVID happened and everybody was petrified of what was going on, and I don't know if Dana's told the story publicly, but behind the scenes, like everybody else, there were significant concerns, economic concerns. We have staff, I don't know what the number is, but call it 500 plus, not including 650 fighters and ex-independent contractors. And Dana was dealing with the calls, and he and I were there together through all of that. And Dana's immediate reaction to it was, we are not laying off a single staff member. These people have been with me. I won't do it, and we will figure out a way to make this work. And I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. I want to say for the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks together, and we had a great crew and a great team, but every single day, from the minute he woke up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, until whenever we went to bed, midnight, 1, 2, we were grinding to do it. And it was never about Dana, it was about, we will not let this fail. These people have been with me, and everybody here has worked too hard. We will figure out an impossible solution. And we were the first sport back, and I think, as you saw, every other major professional sports league followed. But that's, again, Dana is a leader by example. And when I came over to work with him, it was one of the things that, again, I've learned so much from is you have to be a guy who's willing to do, and Dana doesn't want to hear no. The answer is, there's always a solution. We will figure it out. And I think that's why, again, for a guy that started working in a broom closet I'm not joking, by the way, his first office was legitimately a janitorial closet that they converted for him to turn this into a $4 billion company, and I think it went public at like a $12.5 billion valuation. I think it's one of the most remarkable stories in business, not just sports. So.
You don't take no, but you've heard no a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
so,
yeah.
But
Listen.
so I'm curious, looking back on it all, not that you're done, but looking back at it from this vantage point, what's the most gratifying part of it? Is it proving the doubters wrong? Is it that you had this idea and others? I mean, when you get to sort of have that moment, kick your feet up and say, this is working out.
Yeah.
What's most gratifying?
It's proving people wrong. That's what I love to do. I love when somebody tells me you can't. You can't. And I know you. No is never an answer for me. You can't tell me no. There's always a way to figure it out. And you know, if you look at the history of America and how this country was built, it wasn't built on no. It was built on let's dive in, let's roll our sleeves up, and let's kick some ass. That's how this country was built.
I got to ask you finally. I began by asking about coming back to Boston, your roots. But to sit here and Dennis Eckersley is going to be sitting there
I
next.
had Eckersley's baseball card when I was a kid.
Right?
Sat at many games where Doc Rivers was coaching, kicking ass and winning games for the Celtics, and you know, and the list goes on and on of the sports heritage from this city and the people that I grew up and admired and watched do incredible things. So again, to be here today and to be honored alongside all the greats that have ever done it in Boston, it's a huge honor for me.
It's very cool to have you here, Dana. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. Thank you,
Special
Boston.
Achievement
I love
Award,
you guys.
Dana White.